The Art of Being Ruled. Wyndham Lewis. Original publication 1926. 1989 edition. Narrated by Skeptical Waves. Part 12. The Intellectual. Chapter 5. 4 Phases in Art and Science of the War on the Intellect. But with the alienation of the word from its meaning, on the one hand, and the carrying of it over into the region of music, or, on the other, the campaign against language and the articulate altogether, on account of its eternally compromising association with the intellect, with these transactions comes in, as well, a doctrine of mobility where any meaning at all is concerned. The traditional divine logic of the woman is preferred to supposed masculine rigor and method. The woman's right to change her mind is installed in the heart of philosophy. The philosopher, in short, is taking a leaf out of the woman's book, as we have seen other men doing. Why should not he, poor devil, the philosopher seems to say, benefit by the general immunity from exactitude? What is true is what succeeds. The pragmatic forever. Why should the woman have all the privileges where the changing of the mind is concerned? And, as everybody else is doing it, why should not he become like unto a little child too? So all the jolly old Peter Panish professors slip their legs over the sash of the window and land in the flower bed, and off they scamper to join /École Buissonnière in the enchanted forests of childhood, ogling duchesses on the way and supplying them with little philosophic dispensations from the ardors of the intelligence, giving them 100 neat proofs that the ways of the duchess are intuitively in a higher category than the ways of the stupid and pernicious intellectual. Thus it is that, as Benda says, writers who give themselves out to be thinkers are prized for the mobility, the fluidity of their doctrine. He cites a Roland, G. Sorel, and William James as examples of these new fluid thinkers. Cursed be the day, cries one of our aesthetes, apropos of one of his idols, cursed be the day when this mind becomes fixed. Philosophy ought to consist in an unseizable affirmation, because it must at all cost imitate life. The philosopher should proceed in everything as an artist. We know in social life what depths of vulgarity that word artist is used to cover. And in philosophy and science it serves a similar purpose. To be an artist excuses every imbecility, for is not the man of genius an imbecile, or at the best a child? The myth of the imbecile, the childish artist, has been one of the most destructive engines in the war against the conceptual stronghold of the intellect. It may be useful to draw up a short table of the principal forms this anti-intellect campaign has taken. I should group its manifestations as follows. 1. The child. 2. The amateur. 3. The demented. 4. The pragmatic. 1. Under the heading of the child we can group the child draftsmen, juvenile geniuses of all sorts, adults who adopt the child mind, such books as The Little Visitors, Charlie Chaplin's Art, He is Always the Small Put, Upon Little Neuter, The Little David Confronting the Giant World, Clay, to some extent, Matisse, etc. 2. Under the heading of the amateur you get the many wealthy people who, in the general déménagement of Mayfair into Bohemian quarters, have adopted art either as a disguise or as a desultorily followed highbrow game. 3. Under the heading of the demented you get Miss Gertrude Stein and the various stammering, squinting, punning group who follow her. 4. Under the heading of the pragmatic come, of course, the American pragmatists, and all those people in France, such as Sorel, influenced by Bergson. Within the dominions, generally speaking, of the great god Flux, are to be found, distributed amongst all or any of these 4 groupings, the psychoanalysts, futurists, Dadas, Proustites, etc. We are all the patients of a great cult. The maladie du siècle becomes, with Peggy, the mal moderne. From it everybody suffers, he says. A sort of clinical religion is being built up to accommodate us, the priesthood of which is recruited principally from the ranks of the alienists. In every case it is our weakness, our smallness, our ignorance, or our dementia that is catered for. Buddha found the same type of man dispersed among the classes and social ranks of a people who were good and kind, and above all inoffensive, owing to indolence, and who, likewise owing to indolence, lived abstemiously, almost without requirements. He understood that such a type of man, with all its vis inertia, has inevitably to glide into a religious belief which offers the promise of avoidance of a return of earthly ill, that is to say, labor and activity generally. This understanding was his genius. The founder of a religion possesses psychological infallibility in the knowledge of a definite average type of souls, who have not yet recognized themselves as akin. Thus Nietzsche, in The Joyful Wisdom, describes the nature of Buddha's psychological genius. A similar movement has perhaps started today in Europe and the West generally. But the curious difference in the situation is that the patients are first systematically sickened, as you fatten a pig, and then supplied with a nurse and a prescription. Or at all events things are inclined to follow that course. How simple it would be if we could leave it at that, as most people who grasp a little this situation do. But the docility and tutelage, the disgust with or carelessness of life, that supplied Buddha with his clientele is not a thing to be despised. European energy, of which American energy is such a remarkable caricature, is as dismal as the vis inertia of the Hindu. And it is not kind to allow the European to aim at the upkeep of this European energy now that Europe is no longer politically able to afford it. Further, a great deal of the art and thought produced in conjunction with this great movement of corruption and overthrow is actually better, I believe, as a standard at all events, than former European art. Europeans are exchanging political success for spiritual advantages. A higher sensitiveness and intelligence are apparent, as must be expected. But there is a further complexity, and that is what I have been attempting to define for you. The destroyer cannot be at the same time the creator. The political impulses at work constantly distort the issue. The artist or thinker is apt to find himself making something, but ending it with dynamite, as it were. The political necessities underneath the surface are perpetually interfering, magnetically or otherwise, with artistic creation or scientific research. The result is that almost all contemporary thought, science, or art is spoilt, and its speculative integrity, its detachment, sacrificed. It all seems to acquire a mad, evil, or hysterical twist. But also it frequently reaches a beauty that is new in Europe. That, I think, is our problem, and it is not easy to see an issue just yet.